She's about to put on another dominant MVP performance versus the Toronto Tempo, who haven't been able to win a game since the middle of July. This team is garbage, and we need to make sure that we take out the trash. Caitlin Clark, fresh off the Player of the Week, about to win the MVP. Indiana Fever going on a run. They just destroyed Miss Mebound. I can't make a layup that vomit all over herself and embarrassed herself in front of the world. We have to handle business versus a team like Toronto, because any given day, you can look.
That sounds like a routine game on paper. But this is exactly the kind of matchup that can expose whether Indiana is actually becoming a serious contender or just riding a hot streak.
Now, the Indiana Fever coming in feeling real good. We are fresh off 3 straight wins versus 3 straight playoff teams. Now we head to Toronto. And this is a game where we should be able to rest our best players, with about 6-7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. If Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aliyah Boston show up, show out, and handle business from the tip, we should be able to run this team out of the gym.
3 straight wins against playoff teams changes the conversation. Now comes the uncomfortable part. Can Indiana bring that same concentration against an opponent everybody expects them to beat? Because beating good teams gets headlines. Beating struggling teams is what disciplined teams are supposed to do. And there is a massive difference between walking into Toronto thinking, we're better than these people, and walking in determined to prove it from the opening possession. That distinction matters because Indiana has already shown flashes of letting games become more complicated than necessary. Against Atlanta, they eventually got the result, but the game stretched all the way into overtime despite the Dream being shorthanded. You can survive that once. You cannot build a playoff identity around constantly giving opponents extra life. And there is another layer hanging over this matchup that matters more than Toronto's losing streak. Indiana's offense has looked dramatically different when Caitlin Clark is allowed to control the rhythm compared with stretches where the ball gets redirected away from her. That becomes important later, because one decision Stephanie White makes with Clark could determine whether this looks like a comfortable road win or another game Indiana somehow turns into a fourth-quarter fight.
Of things here, okay? You got Aliyah Boston probable with a right leg, Caitlin Clark probable with a back. We know they'll be good to go. Okay, so everything should be.
That injury report is worth watching even with both players listed as probable. Aliyah Boston dealing with the right leg issue and Clark appearing with a back designation does not automatically mean either one is limited, but it does create another reason Indiana should want control of this game early. If you can build separation, you avoid needing Clark, Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell to grind through every possession late in the fourth quarter. That matters when the schedule starts accumulating mileage, but you cannot manufacture rest by assuming the game is over before it starts. You earn it. Indiana needs to put itself in position where the final 6 or 7 minutes become developmental minutes instead of desperation minutes. Get the lead, protect the lead, then worry about preserving bodies. The dangerous mentality would be looking across the floor, seeing Toronto's recent results, and expecting the scoreboard to handle itself, because Toronto might be struggling. But professional players do not need many mistakes to turn confidence into momentum. One sloppy quarter, a few transition baskets, and suddenly the team everybody expected you to dominate starts believing this is the night its drought ends. And Indiana absolutely does not want to become that story.
We don't need to play games with this team, okay? We need to get them out of the way. They have lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold on, let me show it to you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 straight games. They've lost 10 straight games. They have not won a game since July 12th. We are almost in September. This team is hot garbage, and you need to make sure you make them look like the hot garbage that
10 consecutive losses and no victories since July 12th. That is the statistic Indiana cannot ignore, but maybe not for the reason people think. The obvious conclusion is that Toronto should be easy work. The smarter conclusion is that Toronto is desperate. A team carrying a streak like that stops worrying about style points. They want something positive. Their crowd wants something positive. Their locker room wants something positive. And beating one of the hottest teams in the league, with Clark coming to town, would instantly become their biggest emotional win in weeks. That is why the first quarter matters. You do not want Toronto reaching halftime feeling like it has discovered something. You do not want their shooters getting comfortable. You do not want their bench standing up after every possession while Indiana is looking at each other wondering why a game that should have been controlled is suddenly tied. Take away hope early. Run in transition. Force Toronto to defend movement. Make them deal with Clark in space. Make the defense collapse and then punish the rotation. And on the other end, communicate. No careless switches. No lazy closeouts because somebody believes the opponent will eventually miss anyway. The strongest teams understand that concentration should not depend on the opponent's record. That is the first real test tonight.
Business. The number one key to this game. Stephanie White, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Don't come in here trying to change it up. Don't come in here trying to throw a curveball. Don't throw the fastball straight down the middle because they can't hit it because we throw it at about 200 miles per hour. And the fastball is Caitlin Clark having the ball in her hands, being that master, being that maestro, making things happen, reading and reacting, doing what she do. That is the number one and number two keys to victory in this game.
Now we get to the biggest tactical question. Do not overcomplicate Caitlin Clark. That sounds almost too simple, but Indiana has occasionally made offense harder than it needs to be. Clark is at her best when she can read the floor in real time, attack the first opening, force help, and create the second opening for somebody else. That does not mean every possession needs to end with Clark shooting. It means the defense should have to respond to her first. There is a major difference. Put the ball in her hands, and Toronto has to make decisions immediately. Do they pick her up high? Do they switch? Do they trap? Does the big step toward her? Does the weak side tag the roller? Every decision potentially creates something somewhere else. But if Indiana begins possessions by moving Clark away from the action while trying to establish something predetermined, Toronto gets to defend without being forced into that initial moment of panic. That is giving the defense a gift, and Clark has been playing too well to give anybody that gift. The transcript points to roughly 26 points and 10 assists per game across the recent 4-game stretch. Whether every shot is falling or not, that level of production tells you where the offensive gravity is coming from. Use it. The worst outcome tonight would not simply be Clark having a poor shooting game. Poor shooting games happen. The worst outcome would be Indiana voluntarily reducing the influence of its best playmaker, and then spending 3 quarters searching for an offensive rhythm that was available from the opening tip.
2, have the ball in Caitlin Clark's hands. Let her be the playmaker. Let her be the decision maker. We want her being aggressive, getting downhill, getting to that mid-range, getting to that logo 3. She's unstoppable. She's playing like the MVP. She's fresh off a player of the week. Last 4 games, the girl's averaging 26, 10, and 4 rebounds. She's unstoppable. She's unstoppable.
This is where the game should become uncomplicated. Let Clark make the first read. If Toronto gives her the lane, attack it. If the defense drops, use the pull-up game. If they sit underneath the screen, she has the range to punish that. If 2 defenders come, move the basketball before the trap can dictate the possession. And this is not about turning basketball into a one-player show. It is actually the opposite. A great primary creator makes everybody else's job easier. Boston gets cleaner catches. Mitchell gets opportunities attacking a tilted defense instead of creating everything from a standstill. Cutters see more open space. Shooters get more time because defenders are recovering instead of comfortably stationed in front of them. That is what people sometimes misunderstand when they hear "put the ball in Clark's hands." It does not mean Clark shoots 30 times. It means Indiana uses the threat that bends the defense most aggressively. And once Toronto proves it can consistently stop that action, then adjust. Do not adjust before they force you to.
The third key is, I understand Kelsey Mitchell is a big-time scorer. I understand she has a streak going. I think she needs one more to tie or break some record. I don't know. We can't be the Chicago Sky during Angel Reese's rookie year where we are willing to sacrifice games to make sure she gets 20 points. Some of the decision making by Stephanie White in the fourth quarter versus the Atlanta Dream, Caitlin Clark wasn't involved at all. We went Kelsey Mitchell, Kelsey Mitchell, Kelsey Mitchell, Kelsey Mitchell, Kelsey Mitchell, Kelsey Mitchell, because she had 18 points and we were trying to force her to get 20. It needs to happen organically.
Now we reach a much more interesting issue, because Kelsey Mitchell absolutely deserves recognition for what she has been doing. She is one of the league's dangerous scorers. When she gets rolling, Indiana becomes significantly harder to guard because defenses cannot throw everything at Clark and assume somebody else will hesitate. But there is a difference between feeding a hot scorer and chasing a statistical milestone. If Mitchell is getting 20 naturally, beautiful. If she has 18 and a good shot appears, take it. If a transition lane opens, attack it. What you cannot do is allow the number itself to become the possession. Basketball becomes ugly when players start chasing a result instead of reading what the defense gives them. You see it when somebody needs one basket for a career high. Everybody suddenly becomes aware of the number. The ball starts finding that player in situations where it normally would not. Teammates pass up better options. The defense notices what is happening. And suddenly a celebration becomes an obstacle. That is especially dangerous in a close fourth quarter. The priority has to remain winning. What makes Clark and Mitchell potentially devastating together is that neither should require the other one to disappear. Clark can create. Mitchell can punish. Mitchell's scoring threat can stretch the coverage. Clark can use that space to manipulate help defenders. That relationship is far more valuable than forcing possessions simply because somebody is near a milestone. The stat should come from the offense. The offense should never come from the stat.
We don't need to be forcing the 20 points. She doesn't have to shoot every time, like we're racing down the 20 points. It needs to happen in the flow of the game, which I'm pretty sure it will happen, but we don't need to be sacrificing things to make sure she gets 20 points. It can't be about that. Okay, that's going to be the third most important thing.
And this is the broader lesson for Indiana. Do not turn a team objective into an individual scavenger hunt. You are trying to build habits that survive against championship-level defenses. Those defenses recognize predictability immediately. If everybody in the arena knows which player has to receive the ball because she needs 2 more points, the opponent knows too. The regular season should be where Indiana sharpens the decisions it will need later. Who gets the ball when the game is tied? What action creates the best look? Who can punish a switch? When should Clark attack versus facilitate? When should Mitchell reject a screen and go? When should Boston seal instead of floating toward the perimeter? Those decisions have to become automatic because playoff basketball does not give you much time to solve problems. So yes, celebrate streaks and accomplishments, but protect the hierarchy. Winning comes first, and that leads directly into the issue that might frustrate Clark more than anything tonight, if Indiana does not clean it up.
The fourth thing is we have to make layups. Aliyah Boston, you have been not as bad as Angel Reese because she's the worst of the worst kind. That girl's trash. But you've been probably the second worst layup maker I've been watching. I mean, you should watch a Michaela Timpson demonstration video as she stepped in the starting lineup and showed you how to convert majority of your layups, even though she blew that beautiful behind the back pass from Caitlin Clark. But for the most part, Michaela Timpson has been finishing her layups. Aliyah Boston, you need to finish your layups. Everybody needs to finish.
Lexi Hull becomes another interesting part of this because confidence can change very quickly when a rotation changes. The transcript raises a fair observation. If a player starts, gets only a few early minutes, disappears for a long stretch, and then returns later, establishing rhythm can become difficult. That does not mean the coach is automatically wrong. Rotations depend on matchups, defensive assignments, performance, foul trouble, and combinations that are working, but players still have to understand what their role is. Hull does not need 20 shots to affect a game. Her value can come through defense, cutting, rebounding from the perimeter, running the floor, and hitting the open opportunities generated by Clark's creation. The important part is decisiveness. If the ball reaches you open, hesitation can be almost as damaging as a miss because hesitation allows the defense to recover, shoot the open shot, attack the open lane, make the simple pass. That is what Indiana needs from the supporting cast around its stars. Because the deeper payoff in this whole matchup is not really whether Indiana can beat Toronto. Indiana should believe it can beat Toronto. The more meaningful question is whether the Fever can play a game where everybody understands exactly how they contribute to winning. That is the habit contenders develop. Stars create the advantage, role players complete it, and the coach keeps everybody operating inside that structure without constantly interfering with what is already working.
Their layups. Kelsey Mitchell, you've been missing layups the last 2 games. Lexi Hall, I don't even know if you're playable anymore. It seems like I feel bad. I love Lexi. 6 Lexi Halls out there. The girl is everywhere, but it seems like all of your confidence on the floor has been zapped from you. You literally play the first 3.5 minutes and then you don't play again until the second half. I don't know what's going on, but you need to make your layups. Everybody needs to make their layups. Caitlin Clark has so many assists left on the table from you guys just literally smoking layups left and right.
And now we arrive at the one Toronto player who can completely wreck the comfortable version of this game, Marina Mabrey. This is why calling Toronto an automatic win would be foolish. A dangerous scorer does not care how many games the team has lost. A dangerous scorer only needs a few possessions where the basket starts looking enormous. The transcript points to a 53-point explosion as evidence of the ceiling. Whether tonight becomes anything close to that depends heavily on what Indiana allows early. Scorers tell you very quickly when they are comfortable. Watch the catches. Is Mabrey receiving the ball exactly where she wants it? Is she coming off screens with a clean shoulder? Is Indiana allowing her to step directly into rhythm threes? Is the defender trailing the action instead of meeting her? Those are warning signs. The first objective should be making every touch require effort. Pick her up with discipline. Top lock actions when appropriate. Communicate through screening sequences. Change the picture. Make her see bodies without committing reckless fouls. And most importantly, do not let a difficult first shot become an easy second shot because nobody located her in transition. A player like Mabrey can miss 3 attempts and still become dangerous instantly if number 4 is an uncontested 3. Once that goes down, confidence changes. Now the 5th shot comes faster. The crowd wakes up. The bench wakes up. And the defensive possession after that suddenly feels different because Indiana is thinking about her instead of simply executing. That psychological swing is what the Fever must prevent.
And the last thing is going to be this. This team doesn't have enough to keep up with you on the offensive end unless you allow Marina Mabrey to catch fire and get crazy hot. If she gets crazy hot, anything can happen because this girl can get hot and fill it up with the best of them. Okay, we watched her go for 53. I've watched her get 40. I watched her have multiple 35, 33-point games. The girl can absolutely fill up the box score with points if you allow
layups. This sounds basic, because it is basic, and that is why it becomes so painful when a team repeatedly leaves them on the rim. A missed contested shot is one thing. Sometimes excellent defense wins the possession. A missed open 3 is part of basketball. Even elite shooters miss most of their threes. But when your playmaker breaks down the defense, puts the basketball exactly where it needs to be, creates a finish near the basket, and the possession still produces nothing, you have wasted the hardest part of the play. Clark's passing creates opportunities that do not always appear in the assist column, because the assist only exists when somebody finishes the possession. That matters when evaluating her impact, but more importantly, it matters to Indiana's offense. Imagine Clark drives, pulls 2 defenders, and drops the ball to Boston. The defense has already lost. Indiana has already solved the possession. If Boston finishes, that is 2 points and an assist. If the ball rolls out, the box score suddenly makes the entire sequence disappear. But the missed opportunity still mattered. Boston has the size and touch to punish teams around the basket. What Indiana needs is consistency, strong catches, balance, finish through contact when contact arrives, use the glass when it is available. The same standard applies to Mitchell and every cutter on the roster, because these misses do more than remove 2 points. They influence transition defense. A made layup allows Indiana to organize. A wild miss can start a runout in the opposite direction. That can become a 4-point swing. Now repeat that 3 or 4 times, and a comfortable lead becomes a close game. This is also where Clark's pace can become either devastating or frustrating. When she throws ahead in transition, the recipient has to expect the pass. You cannot admire the creativity after the play. You have to complete it. Indiana wants to play fast because Clark sees windows before most defenders can recover. But fast basketball demands concentration. The pass might arrive earlier than you expect. The angle might be unusual. The catch might lead directly into a finish. That is the price of playing with somebody who sees the floor aggressively. Be ready, and if Indiana cleans up those point-blank opportunities, Toronto suddenly has a mathematical problem. They are not merely trying to keep Clark from scoring. They are trying to stop every advantage she creates from becoming points elsewhere.
Her too. Okay, you got to make her work defensively, put her in defensive actions, get her on Kelsey Mitchell, get her on Caitlin Clark. You got to wear her down on the defensive end as well and not just allow her to save her energy for offense. But when she is on offense, look, we need to blitz her, get the ball out of her hands, force somebody else on this team to beat you. I don't believe they have another option that can beat you consistently throughout the entirety of a game. Do not allow Marina Mabrey to go off and turn this thing into a shootout.
That is exhausting.
Okay, let's not make this a stressful game. Let's show up, let's handle business, and get the hell out of there. What says you? Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Join me for that live stream. Let's keep the vision.
This is the part that matters most, and it connects everything from the beginning. Indiana should not merely defend Mabrey. Make Mabrey defend Indiana. That is the real payoff. When an opponent has one scorer capable of carrying a disproportionate amount of offensive responsibility, you attack that player's energy supply. Put her into screening actions. Make her chase Mitchell. Bring her into Clark actions. Force switches. Make her communicate repeatedly. Make her work before Toronto even gets the basketball back. Because basketball is not divided into isolated offensive and defensive worlds. What you force a player to do on one end affects what she can sustain on the other. If Mabrey is constantly navigating screens, fighting through movement, absorbing contact, recovering to shooters, and trying to contain Clark or Mitchell in space, those possessions accumulate. That does not guarantee she suddenly starts missing. Great scorers can survive difficult workloads. But Indiana should force her to prove she can. Then when Toronto has the ball, make another decision. Do you allow Mabrey to operate one-on-one all night? Or do you occasionally blitz and force somebody else to create the offense? The answer should depend on what Toronto is showing. If Mabrey begins cooking, take away rhythm. Show 2 defenders. Force the ball somewhere else. Rotate behind it, and make another player consistently beat you. The mistake would be waiting until she has already hit 6 or 7 shots before deciding this might be a problem. That is reactive coaching. The smarter plan is having the adjustment ready before the game begins. And now notice how all 5 major themes connect. Clark controlling the offense, Mitchell scoring inside the natural flow, Indiana converting the easy finishes Clark creates, the supporting cast playing decisively, and Mabrey being forced to spend energy on both sides of the floor. None of those concepts requires some brilliant experimental scheme. That is why this matchup is almost a test for Stephanie White as much as it is for the players. Can Indiana resist the urge to make basketball more complicated than necessary? Can the Fever identify what gives Toronto the biggest problem and keep attacking it until Toronto stops it? Can they build the sort of lead everybody expects, instead of entering the 4th quarter needing another heroic finish? Because there is a larger season-level question underneath all of this.